Hello, everyone. I am Dawn Westmoreland, hailing from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from Asheville, North Carolina. I have to say it again. So many people moving here. It's such a beautiful area. My friend, Scott Mason, who resides up in New York City, is on the show today. He's a very special person because he's been through so much. We're going to talk about resiliency. We're going to talk about courage. We're going to talk about steps to get there and such. But he has the heart of a warrior or a mythic god. We're going to also talk about that. So my show airs every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone because it is internationally syndicated. You may hear it at a different time. So welcome, Scott. How are you today?
I am so excited to be here. It's always a privilege to be on your show. And wow, I need to see me some Blue Ridge Mountains.
I know everybody's moving here. I just had my mom move in and we're driving around. She's like, I don't even recognize the place. She hadn't been here in 6 or 7 years. I said, no, it's just growing, growing, growing.
Wow.
To the folks listening in, I am Dawn Westmoreland, your host from the Empowered Whistleblower. My show is all about courage, resiliency, overcoming, positivity. And I can't think of a better person who comes from the heart and soul than Scott Mason. Scott, you're the myth slayer. Why are you the myth slayer?
Because I understand that the most powerful personal, professional leadership and other internal transformational tool that has ever been created is myth, specifically Greek myths. They started out serving transformational purposes for one culture. They've become essentially world mythology at this point, and I'm determined to spread the word about what they can do for you, me, and everyone.
Yes. Well, you're an amazing person. I mean, I am very, very biased. I have to say it. And I can't say that about everybody, but you are exceedingly special. You're a consultant, a coach, a 2 times TEDx speaker, 2 times in 1 month. I don't know anybody in the world who's done that. I don't know anybody who's done that. You've got an ebook coming out. We're going to talk about that. And you're also speaking. You're out there helping a lot of people, and you've overcome so much. So I want to take us back to a little over a year ago, and we thought we were going to lose you. Your presence, you have such big energy, and I have chills going up me, Scott. Your presence out there, even though you're online, you're so powerful. You are. And I noticed that you were not on LinkedIn for a while. So I reached out to Dr. Summer Watson, a mutual friend of mine, and I said, okay, I'm a little nervous. Where's Scott? What happened to you over a year ago? You were missed.
Thank you. Appreciate that so much. I couldn't believe what was happening until it occurred. And looking back, sometimes I still am in a bit of shock as to what started out as something that seemed minor, ended up being a personally cataclysmic but deeply transformational experience. I woke up in the middle of the night on June 14th, a Wednesday night, I believe, feeling like an ice pick was stabbing into the back of my neck at the base of my skull. Within 10 days, what I thought had maybe just been sleeping poorly on a old pillow ended up being something that caused me to lose 20 pounds, that enabled me to, or put me in a position where I lost control of my body temperature, where I stopped eating, where I stopped drinking, where I stopped being able to focus, where I was dealing with intense headaches, and where I woke up abruptly on the 10th day, unable to stand or even walk. I was rushed into the emergency room where I went through a deeply traumatic hospital stay in which I was in and out of consciousness at first, then experienced symptoms that, as bad as everything I'd been through so far, only got worse. I had caught a mysterious pathogen of some sort. To this day, no one knows what it was. No one knows where I got it. No one knows how I was able to fight it off. No one knows if it will ever come back. When I left the hospital after a couple of weeks, they told me that if I hadn't been in such good physical shape, I might not have made it out. But they also said the following words: which have reverberated through my life and set the stage for everything that came afterwards, as well as understanding what came before,
Mhm.
which is in terms of what it was that I had. Sometimes, Scott, we just don't have answers.
Wow. It's pretty darn powerful, Scott.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, it's been my experience, and I wonder if it's been your experience, that people who go through huge, major transformations are the best people to get out there and help others. What's your thoughts on that?
100%. I've always been committed to helping others and believe that my mission here was to be engaged in that. Nonetheless, despite professional traumas that I'd gone through, despite trauma that I had experienced as a child, I was severely abused as a child.
Mm.
There is nothing like, and I hate to say this because it almost sounds like a cola commercial, there's nothing like being on the verge of death, particularly if the verge of death brings experiences that in their darkness also shed light on your day to day, to be able to give you a connection with the transcendental, with
Yes.
the spirit that many of us need to make it through not only existential crises, but more mundane day-to-day crises, as well as empathy for those who go through a wide range of experiences. This hospitalization and the illness that I had and the things that I went through while sick were so severe. The
Mm.
illness itself was so abrupt, dramatic, and unexplained that it bordered on being one of those things that is, you know, you can't get much worse than this and survive. And the beauty of that is when you're in that position, you're then able to empathize with a wider range of situations that people might face that to them might feel like existential crises. And in some respects, they might be. But the wider of a range of empathetic situations that you can apply your crisis to, the better of a coach, leader, and a transformational presence that you can be. And for those of us who care about other people, really don't. That's what it's all about.
It really is all what it's about. And I remember you telling me shortly after you came out of the hospital that your husband, I guess he mentally said goodbye to you. You were on your way out, but it's obvious you were not meant to leave this earth. And I believe maybe you're supposed to help other people now.
100%.
Absolutely.
The first night that I was there, I was rushed to the emergency room because, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I woke up one morning unable to stand or walk. And
That must be scary.
they took me to the hospital. And during the early hours, there were some serious conversations that the hospital staff had with him in particular. For instance, do you live on the first floor of your apartment building or in an elevator building? Because
Mm.
if not, you need to think about moving right away if he even comes out of it. I had, like I mentioned, as the show began, lost 20 pounds very abruptly.
Mm.
And I was looking awful. The night that I first spent in the hospital before he left to go home, he snapped a picture of me. And that photo is going to be in an ebook that I'm releasing very soon about that topic. I look horrible. I asked him, David, which is his name, why did you take that photo? And
Mhm.
he said, it's because I didn't know if I'd see you again alive.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
And yeah, I mean, so it is one of those things where, even in situations like that, you learn lessons. You learn lessons about, I always think I have to look good in a photo. I always want my hair to be right. I always want to make sure that my beard is trimmed and that there aren't any hairs sticking out of my nose. Doesn't matter. That photo where I look like garbage on death's door, that may be the most precious photo he ever took.
Yeah, you were one step away from liberation.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, one thing about you, you're a coach, but I remember this was such a fun conversation in the past. What sets you greatly apart from other coaches, because there's a lot of coaches out there, I'm a coach too, is that you use mythic gods and metaphors. Can we talk about that and how you use it? Because it would be impossible to copy you. It just, I couldn't do it. And I love the Marvel movies, but there's no way.
I love the Marvel movies too. And Dawn, I love that you love the Marvel movies. I do think that there is some, well, as a point of pride, what you just said, that it's impossible to copy. Why? Because I feel like we each were given a unique set of experiences, interests, as well as gifts. And if we're able to successfully tie them together, then we're able to fully manifest ourselves in the best and highest way possible to help other people. And the methodology that I developed that is rooted in Greek myths is a demonstration of what you can do if you're truly willing to examine everything within the realm of your history, experience, and interest to bring forth something that is unique and stands out and is able to help people unlike anyone else. We all are singular in the entire history of the universe, which is of a massive age and is of a massive size. And even if you just think about the minuscule, relatively speaking, amount of time that the planet Earth has existed, still, we're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of years there have been living organisms on this planet and hundreds of thousands of years in which there have been human beings. And nonetheless, from a cosmic and an Earth history perspective, there's only one me. There's only one Don Westmoreland. All of us are individual. We each have individual things to bring into the room. It's my firm belief that the interest in Greek myths that I have had ever since I was a child is intimately tied to my purpose. And if I can help people understand the truth about these myths, which is that they represent, as a cultural and as a metaphorical matter, the hopes, aspirations, possibilities, and true extent of the creativity that we all have within each of us, then people can make that connection between the quote unquote divinity that the mythical and heroic figures represent, their own set of possibilities, take the lessons from the myths and become something greater. And my client's success demonstrate that this approach, although it's creative and unorthodox, does work.
It does. And I just have to say this, Scott, that so many coaches out there are not really trained or certified. We don't have to have a license. And sometimes they're copying other people, but they don't really understand the metaphors, in coaching, and you definitely get it. So I know you pretty well. You came from an Ivy school, you went to Ivy College, and then you become an attorney. I think, was it in the corporate world, correct?
It was for the city of New York under the Giuliani and Bloomberg administrations, and then in the nonprofit sector for the largest domestic violence shelter provider actually in the United States.
Yes. And today you are working with a lot of these attorneys and such.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that like?
It's fulfilling, and in the best possible way, it's challenging. We talked a little bit earlier about having what I might refer to as an empathetic range, the broadest scope of experiences that we can bring genuine empathy into and then be able to utilize as a means for helping others. Attorneys have a very specific and challenging educational path that, because legal work is so all-encompassing, the amount of hours that you need to put in both during law school and during practice are so overwhelming that the professional development that you undergo to become a successful attorney can merge into and either amplify or completely shift a lot of your mindset and personality characteristics, meaning that it can be difficult for those who are not in the legal profession to understand the challenges with moving forward and becoming connected to your higher self, your purpose, as well as your ultimate destiny, unless they've walked in those shoes. So I find that being an attorney, being able to help that specific group is a real bonus, because unlike someone who might have received a great coaching certification, they still haven't had the experience of
Yep.
going through law school. They haven't had the experience of working in a legal environment, whether it's a general counsel's office or a huge law firm or the Legal Aid Society. They don't understand the way legal training and education and mindset can limit you when they're looking to become less limited. It's been something that I found challenging as a practitioner, but it's been a huge gift as I step out and try and help others.
Awesome. So I want to talk about some of the things, the tools that you have used in the past to help you to realize like more of your life's purpose. I'm sure you, as a young person, thought, okay, I'm going to be an attorney. You go through all those motion, that process. You did it. You were highly successful, recognized, but finding your true purpose. You and I have talked about this before, and I don't have a lot of knowledge on it. Psychedelics, we're going to just jump in. I think
Yeah,
it's an exciting thing to talk about,
yeah,
and more research is out there showing it's helping people.
yeah, yeah. These substances are of tremendous power. There has been historically a stigma associated with them. I
Mhm.
won't get into it now. There's an excellent book called Food of the Gods by the legendary intellect Terence McKenna, that goes into extensive, detailed, and truly eye-opening history of the relationship between psychedelics, specifically magic mushrooms, psilocybin, and the development of human consciousness, as well as the reasons behind the regulation of psychedelics in our current culture. Suffice it to say, a lot of times substances that may have had a certain potential healing or transcendental properties and minimal dangers to those who use them, as is evidenced by the fact that they've been in use for thousands and thousands of years, nonetheless were essentially regulated out of anything other than an underground use, while other substances that are actually more dangerous persist as items that people can purchase anywhere. And a classic example of the latter is alcohol. How many people die from drunk driving?
Oh my God.
And yet the altered states that alcohol can bring into your life, as well as the overall health risks associated with alcohol use, far exceeds anything that is associated with, say, magic mushrooms.
What kind of experiences have you had? Is it opened up things you've never thought of doing in your life and thoughts you've never had before, or different mindset? What's it like?
Before I go any further, I want to make sure that anyone watching this or listening to it understands exactly to what I am referring.
Mhm.
I am not talking about hanging out with your homeboy or your home gal in the basement or in Central Park or on a boat around a fireplace or at a disco and saying, okay, here's some magic mushrooms. This will be really cool. Right? That I actually think could be quite dangerous and put you in a position where you are in the best case scenario, missing out on a lot of possibility. The experience I had with psilocybin was one that was in a very controlled environment. It's called set and setting. I was spent a lot of time with an experienced, seasoned facilitator slash shaman who had been involved in multiple, probably hundreds of psilocybin facilitations in a location that was designed to be safe, to be calm, and to be able to maximize my focus. He spent a lot of time working with me to develop an intent that I entered into the journey that the mushrooms took me on before before I actually began the experience. He was someone who sat with me the whole time, held my hand when I was afraid, monitored what was going on, thought in advance about what sort of dose I would take and whether I was ready during the experience to take more doses or not, as well as to do something called integration with me afterwards, which is to be able to take the experience that I had while engaging with these plants and deriving meaning from them. He also interviewed me beforehand to make sure that I was an appropriate candidate. Did I have health issues that would preclude me from being able to maximize the benefit of this? Was I spiritually in a place where I could benefit from these and not have them and turn into some sort of over-the-top negative experience? And did I have any physical or brain issues that might warp the ability of these to actually have a positive transformational impact? So before going any further, I do want to make sure everyone understands a facilitated experience with an expert who knows what they're talking about and will help you with setting, and then integration is absolutely essential, and why my experience was life-changing in a way that was beyond my wildest imagination.
I have to say, I just think it's the coolest thing that I would love to do it myself in a controlled professional manner, as you keep talking about, Scott. What did you, that you're willing to share, what did you uncover about yourself or your life or about life? Can you share?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I was deeply traumatized by that illness.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, physically I'd recovered. Mentally, I was sharp as a tack, but spiritually, psychically, I was shattered. What did this mean? How could I process it going forward? I worked with the shaman to come up with an intention that was forward thinking, that was addressing a lot of the questions that I had in my mind. What do I want the next phase, what this new chapter of my life to be? What did everything that happened to me mean? And how could I take the steps to fulfill what I viewed as my own destiny? So the intent that we worked together for me to step into the experience with was, Spirit, show me my light. Spirit, show me my light. And I went into a safe, he had a dome at the bottom of a valley that was serene, that was candlelit, had soft, gentle music playing in the background. There literally was nothing but this dome, like I said, these candles and a cot, as well as a bathroom in the background. And I began a journey in which I literally experienced, as if it were real, a Greek myth. I left. Yeah, it was not what I expected at all. I went on a journey in this Greek myth from a city that was made of stone buildings with flat gray surfaces on a river. At the very beginning of the river was a stone statue of the god Anubis, the Egyptian god of death. And when I got into a canoe on this river, his snout pointed me forward into the river, away from and out of the city. Once I left the city, I went into an abyss, and I from there went on a lengthy, multi-tiered journey to find my light. Around me, everywhere, was the color indigo. The sky was indigo, mountains were indigo, buildings were indigo, water was indigo, space itself was indigo, trees. And I kept looking for this light over and over inside buildings, next to mountains, on treetops. And every time I would almost grab that light, I would see it and I'd come to it, it would disappear.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. And finally, at the very end, and I'm truncating this dramatically, I found myself in a forest at the top of a Mayan pyramid. I lay on my back and I began to levitate up, 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 up into the universe itself. And at my feet, I could see my spirit. I could see the entirety of my spirit. It was so vast. I remember saying out loud to my shaman, I'm a soul, I'm a soul, because my spirit was as vast as the entire North American continent, but my body was the size of a thumbnail. And I understood, as someone that was raised in the Christian tradition, I had understood that the soul was something encased within a body. It was something that we as a human being had. I understood with this clear as day that I'd gotten it all wrong, that the body was merely something that a tiny part of the soul was inhabiting, and that my possibilities, my light, was as expansive as the continental United States was in comparison to a thumbnail. I never found or touched my light during this experience. And so I was disappointed because I felt that my intent had not been addressed. But it was only later that I understood that the answer I had been given was simply one that I didn't understand. And it needed to be shown to me in a way that was metaphorical and that was like myths, an allegory, a lens that reflects back to you the truth so that you could really take it in and hear it. And so began a completely different chapter of my life.
What an experience. And so now you can take this, Scott, and you can work with other people, knowing that so many people are just trading dollars for hours today and they're not truly living. Now, you've got an ebook coming out. Our interview, we've got a few more minutes, but tell us about your ebook that's coming out.
Thank you. It's called Prometheus Reborn. And when I was in the hospital, there were a series of specific experiences, each of which were transformational, each of which were surreal and weird, each of which taught me a lesson that I believe I was given to be able to share. Those who have read advanced copies have said that the ebook is deeply moving, that it is shocking, will make you cry, but also comes to an ending that is affecting and calls us all forward in our lives. And that's what I want the ebook to be all about. It's not a sales lead magnet. It's not about trying to push my services. It's not about any of that BS that a lot of ebooks are for. It genuinely is something that I view as sacred, the written manifestation of a set of experiences I was given to help others.
There's no doubt. And folks, I have worked with Scott and I have been a client of him, and he's helped me break through. And I don't have to go all into my experiences, but I definitely say that, working with Scott has made me think of things I've never been able to think about before, because you called me on some stuff because I was just kind of giving standard canned answers without even really realizing it. And we need people to hold us accountable. Scott, as we run out of time, gosh, it's always a blast to be with you, and time goes so quick. How can people get a hold of you? I know that all the time people find out someone did a TEDx talk and they're like, oh, I want to find out who he worked with, or did he learn it himself? When's your ebook coming out? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Reach out to me via myfreedomrocks.com, myfreedomrocks.com. The TEDx talks are linked to at the top of the website. You can get more information about my philosophy there. And when the ebook is finalized in the next few weeks, it will also be prominently displayed there. And from that site, of course, you can link to my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn profile, as well as my Instagram account.
Yeah. Scott, such a pleasure. I hate that you had to go through all these experiences, but if we don't go through these different, and I'm going to call it an opportunity, and I know you'll get this as a coach, you could say challenge, you could say trauma, and yeah, you would be right. but the opportunity to go through near death changed you, and now you're changing people in ways that are helping them so much. Thank you, my friend, for being on the show.
I could not be more grateful. Dawn, you're extraordinary. And any time that I spend with you is a genuine privilege.
Thank you so much. To our listeners, stay empowered. We'll see you next time.